How are you? Hi, come on in. Good to have you here today. Welcome to the world of words, wisdom, and some wisecracks along the way. Wait a second, Scott. You're not going to get serious about personal development? Hell no. Y'all way too serious right now. Have some fun, okay? Let's crack a joke a little bit and learn something along the way and get wise and change your life. So today I'm going to talk about the number one thing you're doing wrong. Paradoxically, it's also the number one thing you're doing right. It just depends on which order and how much you're doing and what day of the week it is, and is the moon in retrograde, or not, well, the moon doesn't go in retrograde. Is it Mercury? I'm not into that stuff. That's, to me, is like the unicorn and rainbow thing, astrology thing. That's not my thing. Not my thing at all. Although I do like the horoscope. I do. Yeah, I read the horoscope like every, well, we have this paper called the Hometown News. It's the Daytona Beach paper, and it comes out. And they always have a horoscope, and I always go read it. I have to turn the page because I'm a Scorpio, so I'm down the list a little bit. I always like to read it. It never has anything to do with my life, which is why I don't talk about it too much. Anyway, good to have you. It's a daily boost from motivationtomove.com. My name is Scott Smith, hot mess. I'm a podcast dude, otherwise known as the chief motivating officer here at motivationtomove.com. We do it very differently. We do it kind of fun. We do it kind of just, it is what it is. It's like, imagine this. Come here real close. Okay, so people say, what is this thing? Because you don't sound like all those other guys, nor do I want to either. Basically, the premise is this. It's like a morning radio show, which I did when I was in my early 20s. I did a lot of morning radio shows in D.C. and Miami and outside of San Francisco, Santa Rosa, California. And what I learned back then was that you could entertain, you could have a good time, you can make it listenable, make people think a little bit along the way and not get too heavy with it and still make a really big difference. So this thing has always been geared toward, okay, let's make it like a morning radio show with good stuff that's good for you that you can use every single day. And that's what has driven this thing forever. Plus the fact it's just who the hell I am. It's just what I do. That's all I can do. So what's today? Wednesday? Yeah. You know, Wednesday, sometimes I sneak in that silly question that I don't think about this question very much. So pay attention. If you're drifting right now, pay attention because you're going to like this if you haven't heard this before. But I hear this comment regularly, a couple of days a week. And I rarely ask my audience or ask my Facebook groups or anything about what I should do or what they like. They just kind of spew it out on their own. I rarely ask them. And they will always say, I use that question, what can I do? And oftentimes I'll ask it in the middle of the week. Years ago when my first wife, Cheryl, got sick and she had cancer and she died. If you haven't heard that story, the story's on the website now. You can check that out, the About Scott section. I didn't know what to do. We were putting her into hospice. And I didn't want to put her in hospice at home. I did not want to do that because if you have somebody who has cancer and you do not want to make that hospice phone call because then you know they're dying. Feels like you're giving up. But I was standing in the parking lot, Home Depot, Oviedo, Florida. Never forget it. And I didn't know what to do. And so, okay, what can I do? And I didn't like the answer, but the answer was call hospice. And with about 20 minutes, I drove home and they were at my door. They were there. It was crazy. So if you get stuck today, you don't know what to do. Get one of those moments where your boss is laying some stuff on you they shouldn't be laying on you. I'm telling you, if you just will take a breath and go, what can I do? You're going to have an answer. It's going to come to you. It's so simple, but it works. Okay, let's talk about activity. Activity creating activity. It does. Have you noticed that when you initiate an action toward your goal, millions of others things happen all the time. Now, listen, a long time ago, I remember it was like 2 o'clock in the morning and Tony Robbins had his infomercial on, right? He was talking about personal power. That was it. And all you wanted to do was wait on the television show to find out what the heck was personal power. Because he's a good marketer. He wasn't going to tell us. But eventually we got to it. He said, it's the ability to take action. He stole right that out of the Stoic book, the Stoic handbook he did. It's true. But the problem is, as I've mentioned many times before, action is a double-edged sword. It creates action. Activity creates activity. So if you really follow the rules and go back to the Stoics and you look at it, you understand, well, you have to get some clarity first. You got to understand why you're doing things and what you're going to be doing. You have to have that first. If you just go take a bunch of action, it's just going to make a mess. And I contend right now that a good part of this audience, if not all of this audience, no, let's say it, all of this audience, at one point in time, at some point in time during the day, every single person in this audience is taking mindless, stupid, silly action that's making a mess. It is. You're doing something. It's like my wife said, hey, you want to do another yard sale? I'm like, oh, be careful what you say. And my default answer is always no. Now, I don't always say no. My default is don't. That's kind of it. I just don't. And the reason I don't, because if I don't know it to be an instant yes, I understand that is going to create more action, more activity, more craziness. I'm going to be in the middle of something going, why the hell did I do this? When's it going to be over? I'll never do it again. You know what's going to happen. So my default is don't. That's it. I'm not mean about it. No, it's just don't. Let's think about it. If I really want to do it, I go after it. Activity creates activity. So every single person in this audience today, you're messing with stuff. You're doing little. I mean, it could be really simple. I'm going to change shaving creams. Not me, because I'm not shaving right now. But if I were to change shaving creams, I know what would happen. I'd have to go to the store. I'd have to figure out what's new now, what new marketing fits, who changed the label, what do I like more, and which blades do I have the right blade to use as shaving cream. Suddenly I've made a mess. Activity creates activity. Now, the good news is, if you know what you're doing, if you're focused, if you've eliminated 80, 90% of all the stuff that's going on in your life, and if you're actually at the point where you have a minute to think a little bit, and you decide exactly what you need to want to do, what your purpose, what your passion is, what your action's going to be, you can dial those actions. Because as we've said many, many times, and you should know this by now, if you listen closely to the logic coming out of my mouth every single day, that when you have a goal, the goal should have activities. It should have actions. It makes sense, right? The goal is going to basically be a goal is a big bowl of actions. That's what it is. And you're going to take all these little actions, and presumably these actions will go in the best order possible. And presumably there will be no fluff in those actions. There'll be none. Now, of course, sometimes on a Friday night, I've got my goals, I'm working through my actions, and in my big bowl of actions is a bottle of wine. Sometimes it is, right? So you pull it out, you share it with your wife, and suddenly every other action that you had in mind is paused for the next 24 hours. It's to be true, right? It's true. So when you have goals, when you want to know what you want to accomplish, when you want to get yourself out of neutral and start shifting gears and start accelerating, getting what you want, yes, you have to create activity. But really the first thing you have to do is you have to get rid of all the mindless activity that you're cluttering your life with. And that's hard to do because you got to go find it. You got to figure out what it is. That's why I'm always saying, let's take an inventory of all the stuff you're doing, you're not even thinking about doing. Let's get rid of that first. That takes some time to do. And then you got to get clear on what you want to do. And with the time you free up that you have cleared from all the mindless stuff you've been doing, you start to focus that time directly on the activities that are in that little basket of activity that are called goals. Little by little, you're making really good progress. Your actions actually mean something. Now, while I'm here, let me just say this. I completely believe that some of your actions should mean nothing at all. A bottle of wine, going fishing, going to the beach, just hanging out, chilling around a campfire with people, just chilling, watching stupid stuff on Netflix. My grandkids are obsessed with America's Funniest Home Videos. The Animal Edition. It's just mindless, silly stuff. And that's okay. I'm fully on board with that because that's where the magic happens. When you allow yourself just to go mindless in some things, you recharge yourself so you can focus on the other things. But your homework assignment today is to look at everything you're doing, all these activities that are creating a mess in your life. Just look at the source and say, all right, well, if I stop doing this, all that other stuff will stop. Then I'm going to have more sanity in my life and be happier in my life. Probably be more focused to get what I want. That's what you need to be doing today, okay? Don't believe me? Okay, go ahead and stay busy. I'll talk to you in 10 years. Then you'll listen to me. All right, tomorrow, the 9-year life cycle. I talk about this about maybe every 6 months or so, not very often. Didn't know for years. My friend Lewis Gates came up with this. I use it, and I'm actually right on the cusp, the precipice of a brand new cycle. Some of you know that already. I'll talk about more tomorrow, these cycles we go through, and I can tell you I've lived this for 30 years now. This thing works like crazy. You're going to love it. As far as I go into unicorn and rainbows, okay? I'll see you tomorrow right here on the Daily Boost.